Am I audible?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So, hope my audio, video, and screen share are fine for all of us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, in the last class, we started with what should be our strategy for IR, and we had the opportunity to discuss like some of the important things before we get into the IR. Okay, so the first thing what we need to know is geography. Then the second thing, a little amount of history. Then the contemporary issues. Okay, and the importance of the country, and finally what is a way forward. Okay, this is a typical path I would follow in uh, uh, the IR session. So let us come back, I mean let us go to one of the countries to understand how we can actually put this one in practice. Okay, now let us get started with India China relations. Okay, so again just bear with me because India China relations will take a lot of time. Okay, maybe 2 or 3 classes we'll spend only on India China relations. Okay, so just be patient enough. And one more thing which I would like to discuss here is I am just trying to cover India China in a holistic manner. Okay, the ideal way you have to cover your other country relations, but we would not be having enough time to cover the all the countries at the same pace. Okay, because we are having like limited time period. Okay, so what we try to do is like in India China we try to cover uh, the way ideally it has to take, but we would not be having the same time to cover the other countries. Okay, but what I expect is in the same way you are going to cover all other countries so that your preparation is intact. Okay, hope with that assumption we'll move forward. So let us get started. So India China, a lot of things which are in news. Okay, so how exactly do we need to prepare? Okay, let us get started. So what is our agenda maybe for today, tomorrow? Okay, maybe if it extends maybe after as well. Okay, because what you learn here is India China, you learn a lot about India and major powers, India and other countries in the neighborhood. We would not repeat it. Okay, because once we study something in detail, okay, we would be able to reduce our time period which is required for the other countries. Okay, so as usual we'll start with geography. Okay, little amount of geography. Then we'll go to history. Okay, the background of India China relations. Then we'll come back to what should be the strategy. Okay, then we'll try to understand how the diplomatic relations went on between India and China. Okay, what went well, what did not go well. Okay, the good, bad, and ugly side of India China relations. Then we'll focus on the areas of conflict, areas of competition, and areas of cooperation. Okay, the 3C, okay, of India China relations: conflict, competition, and cooperation. And I would strongly encourage you to read or remember these words. Okay, the words like conflict, competition, cooperation, so that it would help, it would be helping you in your writing better answer, okay, in your exam. And how to make your answer enriched. Okay, because most of the students would be having the similar kind of facts. Okay, let us start with a quotation. Okay, write a quotation. Let China sleep. Let let China sleep. When she wakes, when she wakes, she will shake the world. When she wakes, she will shake the world. Okay, this was attributed to Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay, but we do not know really did he say or not. Okay, so but it is often said that it is told by Napoleon. Okay, often attributed to Napoleon. Okay, and it is really true during the pandemic. I hope you are aware. Okay, what exactly happened during the time of pandemic. Okay, if China is sleeping, it is good for the world. If she wakes, the whole world is shaken, because China is something like a reluctant nation. Okay, to come into the public sphere. Okay, that's what we'll discuss in detail. Okay, all right. Now, what we need to understand from the geography perspective. Again, as I told, like geography becomes super important. Okay, to understand anything in the IR part. Okay, let's get started with the geography. Now, when I say geography, you might ask what you should cover in geography. Okay. Now, first thing is what are all the important rivers in China? Can anyone tell me what are all the important river systems in China?
Yangtze,
Uh, Yangtze, maybe if you mean by this. Okay. Anything else?
Huanghe,
Huanghe, good. Huanghe, very good. Anything else?
Indus also.
Indus also. Okay. And Brahmaputra also. Okay. Zangpo. Okay. It's often called as Zangpo in China. Okay. All right. Mekong. Okay. Now what we can see here, I hope you would be doing this exercise, but just for the understanding, you can see the important river systems in China. Yangtze, okay, which traverses from here. Okay, if you can see the pointer, okay, it traverses from here and it will flow throughout China. Okay, and it would enter the East China Sea or the South China Sea, the eastern coast of China. Okay, or it's on the banks. You can see the places which are in news like Wuhan or Guangzhou or Nanjing or Shanghai. Okay, all these are important places which are there in China. Okay, all important towns, important cities which are there in China. Okay, in the same way, you can see Huanghe, the river Huanghe, a very famous river. Okay, this particular river, okay, the one which I am drawing here. Okay, you can see this is called Huanghe, or often called as Yellow River. Okay, now what is the longest river in China? Anyone is aware? What is the longest river in China?
Yangtze,
Yangtze. Okay, this is the longest river in Asia. Okay, Yangtze is the longest river in Asia. Now, what we need to understand is, though it is the longest river, Huanghe is more like a civilizational river for China. Just like think of maybe Indus River in India. Okay, we know that Indus Valley civilization, okay, has started along the banks of Indus River. In the same way, the Chinese civilization started along the banks of Huanghe. Okay, that's often called as Yellow River. Okay, it's a colonial term. You should not use it in the exam. Okay, it's called officially called Huanghe. Now, what we need to understand here is, though China is very large, okay, very large country. Okay, most of the cities are located on the eastern side of China. You have noticed it. Okay, you can see that most of the rivers are located on this side. Okay, not on this side. Why is it like that? Just like the case of India. Okay, just like the case of India, the coastal regions are more developed than the interior regions. Okay, now why this particular point becomes important for us to understand? Because China, though it looks like it is hugely developed, China has its own set of internal problems. Just like we have internal security problems in India. Okay, if you just take the map of India, what you realize is the coastal regions are better developed than the interior regions, right? Very a common observation. Okay, that coastal regions are better developed because of trade, because of agriculture, because of river systems. Coastal regions are much developed than interiors, and many of the problems India faces are there in the low developed region. Okay, either you take the northeastern part of India, okay, where there is no sea coast. Okay, or you take on the central part of India. Here you have the problems of insurgency, the northeastern part. Okay, in the central part of India we have the problems of left wing extremism or Naxalism. Okay, in the same way, even the China, though it is huge, most of the development is taking place here. There is an unequal you can say amount of development which is happening in China. That's the reason, like most of the people here, okay, they are living in arid geographical conditions. Okay, arid geographical conditions, and most of them believe that the rest of China is growing at the expense of this particular region. Is it clear? Just like what Naxals believe. I hope you are aware about the Naxal movement or left wing extremism movement. Okay, most of the tribal population who are living here, What is their belief? Their belief is the rest of the population is growing at the expense of theirs. Okay, for example, all the mining projects are coming in the Naxal affected region. Have you noticed this? Or all the you can say power plants or steel plants or any huge dams are coming only in the Naxal affected regions. Now, because of this, who is benefiting? It is not the people who are sacrificing their livelihood, but the people who are living in Mumbai or Delhi are benefiting it. Have noticed this? Okay, all the contractors or politicians or bureaucrats are benefiting by the exploitation of the natural resources which are there here. Okay, that's what the root cause of the Naxal movement or the left-wing extremism movement. In the same way, the people who are living here, they believe that there is some kind of injustice which is done by the rest of the China for its development. Okay, that is where you'll see a lot of insurgent kind of movements brewing up in this particular portion of China. Okay, got an idea? So though we know that China is highly developed, okay, the development is not uniform within the China. Okay, now this is a very important statistic, because whatever we are talking about the development, just like take the case of Karnataka only, maybe you'll be able to appreciate. Though we are saying that Karnataka is one of the most you can say developed state, okay, in the country. What you realize is the development in Karnataka is mostly limited to Bangalore. Have noticed this? In and around Bangalore only the development is taking place. Okay, if you go to northern part of Karnataka, if you go to the southern part of Karnataka, the same level of development is not taking place. Okay, there is an inequality in developments. The same thing in Maharashtra. Okay, if you notice that the development in Maharashtra mostly taking place in and around Mumbai or in and around Pune. That's it. Okay, the remaining portion of Maharashtra is still in the portions of drought, portions of, you can say, farmer suicide. Okay, all these challenges are there in Maharashtra. Same thing with Gujarat. Okay, if you go to Gujarat, it is the Saurashtra region. It's an arid region. Okay, within the state also, what you notice is the development is not uniform, and within the country, the development is not uniform. Why? There is an insurgency movement. Okay, because they believe that the remaining portion of India, the mainland India, is ignoring them. Okay, which is partly correct also. Okay, we notice that even if there is a huge flood in Assam, no one knows. Okay, and many people do not know what where is Manipur, where is Meghalaya, where is Nagaland. Okay, that's what which happens in the rest of India. We barely know who is the chief minister of northeastern states. Okay, we barely know what is happening in the northeastern part of India. Okay, but something happening in Mumbai, something happening in Uttar Pradesh, they hit the headlines of newspapers. Okay, now what they believe is we are ignored, we are exploited. There is some kind of discrimination which is happening to us. Okay, this is one of the root causes of insurgency. The same way, even in the rest of China, okay, this particular portion is subject to historical neglect. Okay, some real and some perceived. We do not know whether it is correct or not. Okay, but the people here believe that we are not treated on par with the rest of China. Understood this? Okay, this is a very important parameter when we are talking about international relations, because we will notice that a lot of insurgent movements are going on this particular portion of China, which is what we call it as Xinjiang portion. Okay, the province here is called Xinjiang. Okay, just be aware about all the names. Okay, Xinjiang is a something like Kashmir of China. Okay, or something like Nagaland of China. Okay, where there are like lot of problems. Okay, in Nagaland, in Kashmir, where the integration is not complete. Okay, if you notice the challenges in India, you'll be able to correlate. Okay, think of Xinjiang as a weak point for China. Okay, any questions till now? Okay, now why this particular portion is arid? Okay, why this particular portion is arid? It mostly desert kind of geography. Okay, maybe you can ask your geography faculty. Okay, he would be explaining what is a rain shadow region. Okay, because of the huge presence of Himalayas, and the monsoons would not reach here, and mostly this particular portion is arid. Okay, so maybe you can ask your geography faculty what kind of minerals are found here, what kind of resources are found here. Maybe it would help you out in understanding the problems in China in a much better way. Okay. Then this is a political map of China. Okay, so we would focus on the important provinces. Okay, important provinces which are often in news. First one is Xinjiang. Okay, the capital is Urumqi, URUMQI. Okay, now why this particular portion Xinjiang is important? Okay, this is a place where there is a lot of Islamic population. Okay, a lot of Islamic population, and this is also the place where there are a lot of rebel groups. Okay, as I told, something like Kashmir of India. Okay, a lot of separatism which is happening in the Kashmir. Similar way, even China is having the trouble of rebel groups. Okay, and most of these rebels are Uyghur, UYGHUR. Heard of this name? Uyghur rebels. Okay, where you might see in news that how China's government is treating the Uyghur rebel groups or the torture they are being subjected to. Okay, so what is one of the vulnerable point for China is this particular Xinjiang portion. Okay, so often many scholars write in the newspaper when China is interfering into Kashmir issue, India should interfere into the Xinjiang issue of China. Okay, because China is exploiting the challenges which are happening in Nagaland or happening in Kashmir for its own interest. Okay, now should India be also exploiting the Xinjiang problem of China? Okay, that's where like Xinjiang is in news, and this is also becoming important because of rising Islamic extremism in the region. Either you take in Pakistan, either you take in Central Asian republics, or you take in Russia. Okay, we'll talk about the rising Islamic extremism, okay, in this particular region. Okay, then the other challenges what China would be having is Tibet. Okay, if you are aware that Tibet was an independent kingdom after the independence, after 1950s, it is an independent kingdom, and later it has been taken over by Chinese government. Now there is a lot of turbulence within Tibet, which is calling for independence of Tibet, including Dalai Lama.
Progress.
Okay. If someone wants to speak, please go ahead. Okay. All right. So please keep your microphones on mute if you don't intend to speak. Okay. All right. Tibet is one more region, okay, which is a troublesome region for China because of the independence movement which are going on in Tibet. Because when China annexed Tibet in 1950s, okay, a lot of you can say communities within Tibet and within India and across the world, they have rejected the Chinese annexation of Tibet. In fact, one of the reasons why India-China went to the war is because of the annexation of Tibet, which we'll discuss in the further slides. Then we are having Yunnan. Okay, now Yunnan is famous for the drug trafficking syndicates. Okay, if you are aware that there are two regions in the world where there is a huge production of heroin. Okay, hope you are aware the drug. Okay, not heroin, heroin. What is this often called? What is the other name for heroin? Come on. Brown sugar. Heard of the name brown sugar? Often used in movies. Okay, so it is partly heroin. Okay, then now in the world there are two places where there is a huge production of heroin. Okay, one place is what we call Golden Crescent. Okay, the other place is called Golden Triangle. Okay, can anyone tell me what is Golden Crescent and Golden Triangle? Heard of these names or hearing for the first time? Golden Crescent. See, these are two drug production areas in the world. Okay, now the drugs are produced in three areas. Okay, one in Central America. Okay, if you are aware of Colombo, Mexico. Okay, these are the countries where there is a huge production of drugs. The other two regions are in Asia. One is Golden Crescent, other is Golden Triangle. Golden Crescent, the countries, the Islamic countries, Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, and Golden Triangle around Myanmar, Laos, okay, Vietnam, Cambodia, etc. Okay, these countries are also having a huge production of, okay, if you take the map of India, on one side we are having Golden Triangle, on one side we are having Golden Crescent. Now, what happens is a huge amount of drugs which are produced would be transmitted into India and China. Now, in fact, these drugs which are produced are, in fact, one of the reasons for insurgency in India. Understood why the problem of drug production is a cause for the insurgency problems in India, because this is like bread and butter for a lot of insurgent groups. Okay, lot of insurgent groups earn their revenues by drug production, okay, or drug trafficking. Okay, I hope you are aware about Taliban, okay, which is in news. Taliban earns a huge amount of revenue thanks to Golden Crescent, okay, by drug production. Okay, Taliban has its own drug production cartels, okay, own drug trafficking cartels. Okay, through this it is earning a huge amount of revenues. Now, these insurgent groups are not only working in India, but they are also working in China, mostly in the Yunnan province. Okay, if you look at this particular location, here there is Golden Triangle. Okay, and a huge amount of drugs which are produced would come to India, come to China. Now, just like India is having the insurgent problems, drug cartels, which are there in the Northeast, in the same way, here also the Yunnan province is also having a huge amount of drug cartel problem, okay, which is not good for Chinese government. The capital of Yunnan is, can anyone tell me what is the capital of Yunnan province? Very famous. Okay, if you read newspapers, you would be coming across this particular city. Okay, if anyone knows, put it in the chat box. Okay, the reason is there is also a corridor by the same name, which is connecting Calcutta, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and China, which we call it as BCIM corridor. Heard of it? Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar corridor. Okay, which starts from Kolkata, okay, to the capital of Yunnan, that is Kunming. Okay, the capital of Yunnan province in China is called Kunming, Kunming. Now, why this is important? Because we are constructing a huge multi-purpose projects, okay, which we call by the name BCIM corridor, Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar corridor. Okay, now what exactly this is going to do? This is going to provide connectivity to two turbulent regions in India and China. Okay, think of Yunnan as something like Punjab of India, Urta Punjab of India. Okay, maybe Urta Punjab of China. Okay, Yunnan. Okay, so this is one more region. Okay, you would have heard of Wuhan almost every day in news because of the COVID. Can anyone tell me in which province Wuhan is located? Anyone is aware?
Yarkand.
It's a place in China. I don't know. Okay, so anyone is aware? Okay, just try to find out where is Wuhan located, because often you see the places in news. Okay, yeah, Hubei. Yeah, good. Okay, it is located in Hubei province. Now, whenever you see a new place or new, you can say name, okay, which is related to China, just try to take a map and try to point out where exactly it is located. Okay, this would be helpful for your IR preparation as well as geography preparation. Now, once we are clear, okay, a bit clear about the map of China, we need to also touch upon the provinces, like you can see here, Beijing, okay, the capital of China. Then you can see Taiwan. Okay, you can see Taiwan, a small island here. You would see Hong Kong, okay, and you would see Macau, M-A-C-A-O or C-A-U, Macau. Okay, very turbulent provinces in China. Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, okay, Yunnan, Xinjiang or Tibet, or Xinjiang. I think these are all the most important territories from our perspective. Now, just like India, India is having Delhi as administrative capital and Mumbai as financial capital. The same thing in China, Beijing is the administrative or political capital, whereas Shanghai is the administrative capital, sorry, financial capital of China. Okay, think of Beijing as Delhi and Shanghai as Mumbai of China. Okay, it's having a political capital and a financial capital. Now, what you can also see here is most of the other cities which are famous, okay, including Nanjing or Tianjin, okay, which would come in your history, okay, maybe in your modern Indian history, you would come across all these cities. What you see here is almost all the cities are located on the eastern coast of China, just like in India. Okay, just like in India, what you see here is most of the cities are located on the coastal line. Okay, from Mumbai to Kolkata to Chennai. Okay, Bangalore is developing these days, Pune is developing these days. But if you look at traditionally, most of the development is taking in and around the coastal cities. Okay, either Mumbai or Chennai or Kolkata. In the same way, even in the case of China, most of the development is taking place around the coastal regions of China. Okay, so I hope we got some idea, okay, how to prepare for the geography, right? Any questions? I'll take a pause here to see if you are having any questions till now. Okay, or feel free to add anything. Okay, if you know something, you can feel free to add. Okay, but I hope you got some fair idea about what to study in the geography of China. Okay, you should take a political map, you should take a physical map. Okay, identify what are all the river systems, why it is arid, why it is a desert region. These kind of questions can be asked in your mains. Okay, why there is a lot of deserts in the interiors of the continents. Okay, why most of the deserts are located on the eastern side of the continents, not on the western side. Okay, maybe you might get questions like this. Okay, so just try to find out from your geography perspective what kind of minerals are located, why exactly, what do you mean by rain shadow region. Okay, what kind of ecological systems are there. Okay, all right. Now, once we got some kind of background of geography of China, what would make sense for us is to have some kind of learning about the history of China. Now, when I say history of China, what you should not do, okay, because generally students, when they hear the name history, okay, they try to understand everything about the history. They start from Chinese civilization, they start to understand what exactly is this. One thing what we need to understand here is we are not preparing for UPSC of China. Okay, we are preparing for UPSC of India, right? Okay, so no need to prepare each and everything in China. Just a broad overview of the history of China. Now, how to prepare for a broad overview? Okay, take this drawing diagram in your notes quickly, or take a screenshot. Okay, take a screenshot or take write down quickly in your notes. Okay, I'll just give a 2 minute of time for you if you want to take it down. Okay, all right. So maybe your world history faculty would be telling you what exactly are this, but just let me cover in a nutshell. Okay, now what happened during this period? Okay, from 1368 to 1912, China was under one single empire. Okay, now what is something different from India to that of China is India is not used to a strong centralized rule. Okay, in India we hardly have centralized rule. Most of the rules are federated rules. Okay, we are having federal dynasties ruling India. Okay, we are not habituated to a strong central kingdom which is ruling the entire India. Okay, if you look at the ancient history or medieval history of India, you hardly find any dynasties, okay, which rule the whole of India. Okay, maybe if you just make a timeline of India, okay, maybe if you make a timeline of India, what you realize is in ancient India there is Mauryas, okay, or Guptas, okay, or Delhi Sultanate or Mughal Empire. Okay, now apart from these dynasties or kingdoms, okay, there are almost no dynasties which rule the entire Indian subcontinent in totality. Uh, Please keep your microphones on mute. There's a lot of noise coming from you. Okay, thank you. So what you realize is in the case of India, apart from these dynasties, okay, which ruled for a shorter span of time compared to that of whole history of India. Okay, now they ruled for maybe 150 years, they ruled for 100 years, they ruled for 200 years, they ruled for 300 years, okay, something like that. But the majority of the history of India is decentralized. But in the case of China, it is exactly the opposite. Okay, most of the Chinese history, you would see one single dynasty ruling the entire China. Now, why this particular fact is important for us? The fact is important because it has become a part of Chinese culture to be ruled by a strong central kingdom. Is it clear? But India is not habituated to a strong central rule. That is where whenever the Delhi tries to curtail the powers of regions, there would be outlash. Okay, take the case of Indira Gandhi. Okay, the most popular leader India ever had. Okay, even during the time of Indira Gandhi, her government was brought down when she tried to centralize India. Okay, because many regions in India did not consider Delhi as their ruling partner. I've noticed this. Okay, mostly the West Bengal, the Didi is not happy with strong central rule. Okay, in the southern part of India, okay, the Kerala or the Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh, they are not habituated to strong rule by center. The same thing with Maharashtra, same thing with Nagaland, same thing with Mizoram. They are not happy with the strong central rule. Okay, one central rule, okay, which is trying to curtail their powers. Okay, but in the case of China, it is other way around. Okay, China is habituated to strong central rule. Now, what happened was in 1800s when in India there has been advent of East India Company. Okay, there was a imperialism. Now, slowly the imperialism which is there in India, okay, the East India Company waged war against Chinese government. Okay, and over time in a series of wars, which we call it as opium wars, China was defeated and China was brought under the control of East India Company. Is this clear? Just like India was brought under the control of East India Company, the British East India Company brought the Chinese rulers under the control. And this imperialism is different from what it is there in India. In India, East India Company tried to rule India. But in China, the rule is done by Qing dynasty, okay, which is also called Manchu dynasty. Okay, the Manchu dynasty is allowed to rule, whereas East India Company would do only the trade. Is this clear? The kind of arrangement which is there in China is different. The kind of arrangement they had in India. In India, the British crown would take over after 1857 revolt. But in the case of China, the Qing dynasty is allowed to rule, whereas the East India Company would be only dealing with trade part. Okay. Now, over time, what happened is there has been advent of lot of colonial powers. Just like in the case of India, okay, French came and took away Pondicherry. Portuguese came and took away Goa. Okay, the British came and took away the rest of India. Okay, in the same way, the Portuguese, the French, the Germans, the Russians, one after the other, the colonial powers came and they have snatched portions of China. Okay, this is what we call it as spheres of influence. Okay, this is what we call it as spheres of influence. Simply put, China was broken down into pieces and each of these territory, okay, was ruled by one particular dynasty, one particular colonial power. But the ultimate control is with the Qing dynasty. Okay, are you getting the arrangement? Okay, that means the ruler would be King Dynasty, but most of the times the ruler would be a puppet ruler, only for the namesake. But the actual decision and actual, you can say, power is being exercised by the colonial powers. Okay, this is what the arrangement which was followed in China. Now, during this time, something interesting happened in 1890s. Okay, what happened was a small island country, Japan, would get industrialized. Now, Japan also wanted its share in China. Now, Japan would attack China and Japan would defeat China. Okay, now why this particular fact is important? Okay, Japan defeating China, because if you look at the map of China, China is a huge country. Okay, whereas Japan is a small island. Now, a small island like Japan could defeat China. This would be a national humiliation for Chinese. Okay, it is like a national humiliation for Chinese. Think of something like, okay, I hope you would not write it in the exam. Okay, think of something like a small country, a small island is defeating the huge subcontinent, which is a national humiliation. Just allow me a moment. I'll just be back. Exactly happened when Japan invaded China and Japan would defeat China. This many Chinese would consider as a national humiliation, and there would be a lot of turbulence which would happen in China, which would end up in the case of rebellion. Okay, there would be a lot of rebellions which happens within China. They feel that the people in China feel that it is because of the misrule of King Dynasty there has been a defeat. Okay, and there would be one rebellion which they try to attack and defeat King Dynasty. It was not successful, but again one more revolution would take place in 1911, where the King Dynasty would be replaced with what we call as Republic of China. Okay, I hope you are aware about what do you mean by republic. Okay, republic means there is no king, there is no dynasty. The Republic of China would be established in the year 1911 after the Xinhai Revolution. Now, though there has been Republic of China which is established, there would be a lot of other players, okay, who wanted to capture the power in China. This is which would lead to rise of a lot of movements within China. Okay, this particular period is what we call warlord era. Okay, where there are a lot of powers which would try to consolidate their positions. And finally, among this, one particular political party by the name Communist Party of China would try to enter the game. And under the leadership of Mao, this would be successful. And post World War II, the Communist Party of China would establish a country called People Republic of China. Okay, in the year 1949, which is what we call it as Chinese Revolution. Okay, understood the overview of the history. I know it could be a little difficult if you are hearing for the first time. Okay, lot of names, lot of events, but I think this is pretty much what you need to prepare in history of China. Okay, so when you're preparing, ensure that you are writing all important facts related to each of this within one page of your notes, not more than one page of your notes. Okay. Is it clear? Any questions till now? Okay, all right. So once we are having a background of history, okay, background of geography, we'll try to understand what happened in India-China relations post-independence. Okay, all right. Now, what I have done is the whole entire history of India-China relations, I try to sum up in one particular slide. That's it. Okay, now we'll try to understand what exactly happened between India and China during this particular time. Okay, make a table in your notes. Okay, prepare a table in your notes. Okay, something like this timeline. And under each of this, we'll write the points. Okay, the period between 1950 to 62 is what we call it as idealism. What we call it as idealism phase, the phase of idealism. 62 to 76 is called security dilemma. till 98, it's called reluctant reconciliation. Reluctant reconciliation. And 96, 98 onwards, we call cautious admiration. Cautious admiration. Cautious admiration. Okay, now we'll try to understand what exactly happened during each of these phases. Okay, why exactly the you can say the idealism phase. Okay, why exactly the security dilemma? Again, we need to substantiate with examples. Okay, now whatever we are talking about, we need to put forward with a lot of examples. Then only it would be making some sense. Okay, first one, idealism phase. Right now, idealism phase. Okay, you can write the Panchsheel Treaty of 1954. The Panchsheel Treaty of 1954 propounds the five principles of peaceful coexistence. Five principles of peaceful coexistence. Okay, so India is also born in 1947. Okay, with lot of challenges. Okay, which are there internally and externally. Okay, India is also born with lot of challenges. In the same way, the China is also born in 1949 with amidst lot of challenges. Okay, both internal and external. Now, two major countries in Asia. Okay, born at the same time. Okay, with a similar background, because both of them went through the same phase of colonial exploitation. Okay, both of them went through economic hardships. Okay, both of them had similar developmental priorities. Now it was natural for both the countries to come together. That is what which happened in 1950s. Okay, and how can we say that both the countries came together with the help of Panchsheel Treaty? Okay, which was signed between India and China, which would summarize what exactly their objectives were. Okay, you can write down the Panchsheel Treaty 1954. The Panchsheel Treaty 1954. Okay. Now, what China expected from this? What China expected from this? Chinese perspective. Okay, so the treaty is same, but what India expected out of China is entirely different. What China expected out of India. Okay, we'll try to understand what exactly was this. Chinese perspective. You can write in first one. China hoped that India would refrain. China hoped that India would refrain from interfering in Tibet issue. China hoped that India would refrain from interfering in Tibet issue. Interfering in Tibet issue. Tibet issue. Second one, China hoped that, or China expected, India would return territories. India would return territories that it got during British Raj. That it got during British Raj. Okay, in brackets, right? Aksai Chin. China expected India would return territories that it got during British Raj. Okay, in brackets, right? Aksai Chin. China expected that India would return on its own. And China hoped that India would help China in warding off major powers in the region. In warding off major powers in the region. Okay, in brackets, right? Korean War and Vietnam War. Okay, hope you are going to do some research on this. Okay, what is Aksai Chin? What is the problem of Tibet? Okay, I'm just giving you the clue. Okay, I'm just giving you the direction, what you need to prepare. Okay, this is not the actual notes. Okay, what I'm giving is just the subject lines, what you need to prepare. Okay, what exactly is the problem of Aksai Chin? What is Korean War? Why China expected India's help in Korean War? I hope you are going to do this exercise on your own. Okay, and if you have any challenge, let me know. We can discuss it in the class. Okay, then fourth one. India to maintain or India to not interfere into. China expected India would not interfere into regional disputes. Regional disputes. Okay, but this did not happen. What China expected did not happen out of this functionality. Whereas India has its own perspective or own expectations out of this functionality. Now, what India expected out of function? First one, India expected to consolidate its position. India expected to consolidate its position as a non-aligned nation. As a non-aligned nation. Non-aligned nation. Next one. India expected mutual respect. India expected mutual respect. Mutual respect. Would keep China claiming mutual respect, would keep China from claiming Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh. Aksai Chin, and Arunachal Pradesh. Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh. Next one. India was a young nation. India was a young nation with its own developmental priorities. With its own developmental priorities. Okay, I hope you are aware when India was born, it had its own challenges, a lot of challenges, internal, okay, like social, economical, political, okay, multiple challenges are there. We need to consolidate as a nation. Now we do not have any time to participate in Korean War or Vietnam War, okay, which is of not interest or not of, you can say, something which India wanted to be at this position. So India wanted to focus on its own developmental priorities, which China expected that India would come forward for Chinese support, but India did not. Okay, then India expected to establish its relations with Soviet Union. To establish its relations with Soviet Union through Chinese support. Through Chinese support. Okay, India expected that though we are having the policy of non-alignment, Soviet Union was not happy. It wanted to maintain good relations with Soviet Union through Chinese support. But what India failed to underestimate is there were already some challenges between Soviet Union and China. Though China was officially a partner of Soviet Union, okay, post World War II, okay, but within Soviet Union and China, there are a lot of differences. Okay, though there is a communist party in Soviet Union, communist party in China. Okay, there has been a lot of differences between Soviet Union and China, which India did not or failed to understand the dynamics at this particular point. Now, because both the expectations did not meet, okay, the honeymoon period came to an end, okay, between India and China. Finally, it would lead to a war, an ugly war, that is what we call 1962 war. Okay, I hope you are aware about the 1962 war, which happened between India and China, where the border dispute became to the limelight. Now, the border dispute is just a spark. Okay, what exactly the border dispute is just a spark. The other events or the other material were already there to create the turbulence between India and China. Okay, almost up till 1962. We expected that both would come together, both the countries would converge, but in fact, they started diverging in 1962. Okay, all right. Any questions till now on the first phase of India-China relations, idealism phase? Or
sir, I have one question.
Mhm.
Sir, regarding the second point in Indian perspective, right? Like we have noted, like India expected mutual respect would keep China from claiming Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh. So this thing, like by this point, are we saying that Aksai Chin and Arunachal Pradesh are actually supposed to be China's part, and India was just trying to ensure that China doesn't come up and claim it? Or is it like, I mean, this phrasing doesn't
Yeah.
look to be from India's point.
Right. See, the challenge here is when we are talking about to which country the territory belongs. Okay, to which country Kashmir belongs, to which country the Aksai Chin belongs, to which country the Arunachal Pradesh belongs. In short, if you ask me, okay, the answer, we do not know. Okay, why? Why we do not know? Because if India is able to produce the claims that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to me, China is in equal position to produce the claims that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to me. Is it clear? Okay, in the same way, the Kashmir, if India is able to produce the claims that Kashmir belongs to India, the other party is in a same position to produce the claims that Kashmir belongs to Pakistan. Okay. Now, when you're writing your exam, you cannot write it. Okay. But to be put it in this way, if India is claiming, China can also claim. There's nothing wrong in claiming, right? So what happens is we do not know to which country it belongs to. Okay. In short, if you ask me, we do not know. But what we know is during the British time, during the British Raj, when British East India Company was ruling India, a lot of you can say wars would happen. During these wars, a lot of territories would be occupied by British East India Company, which would be merged with India. A lot of border disputes, what India is having today, can be traced back to the colonial regime. Now, many countries in the neighborhood claim that because India is rejecting British rule, India is rejecting imperialism, it should give back those territories. If you take the problem with Nepal, the same problem, the Kalapani dispute. The problem with Pakistan, the same issues of Kashmir. Problem with China, the issues of Aksai China and Arunachal Pradesh. Most of the disputes are traced back to the colonial times, which the countries expect India to return. But what India claims is it is not only during British time. Even before that, they were part of India. Now this no one knows whether they are, because there are no maps, there are no statistic. We cannot go by a particular country's statistic. This is where when you're writing your answer, you have to write it is a disputed region. Okay, to put it more diplomatically. Or to put it more diplomatically, China claims that Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, the word claim is more important. We are not saying it belongs to China. We are saying that China claims. Pakistan claims Kashmir. There's nothing wrong because it is a claim by Pakistan. Is it clear? So what differentiates when you're writing the word claim? If you forget this word, then the whole answer would be completely wrong. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, China claims. Okay, or India claims. Okay, so when you're writing your answer, you should be diplomatic enough. You are writing in a more diplomatic way. This is where you make your answers better and better. Okay, for example, let me give you an example. I think I have talked about it. Can you say that in India, politicians are corrupt? Can you say that in your exam?
No.
Okay, but how can you write it? Okay, there is perceived corruption in political class. The word perceived is more important. Okay, that means there is a perceived corruption in political class. Now, your answer is correct because people think that there is a corruption in politics. Is it clear? The word perceived becomes most important. Can you say that bureaucrats in India are lazy? Okay, you can say that, but in a diplomatic language. Okay, there is a perceived lethargy in bureaucracy. Okay, we are not arguing that whether bureaucracy is active or bureaucracy is inactive. We are saying that it is a perception. There is a perceived corruption in political class in India. Okay, now in the same way, China claims Arunachal Pradesh. There is nothing wrong because we are using the word claim. There is nothing wrong in saying that there is corruption in India because you're using the word perceived. Okay, so these keywords should become like the base for you because you are writing what you want to write, but you are writing in a more diplomatic way. Okay, all right. Now moving forward to the discussion. Now in 1962 there has been a war, okay, which would be waged by India and China. Okay, now India claims that China attacked India. China claims that India provoked China. Okay, we do not know who is right and who is wrong. Okay, but what we know is in 1962 there has been a war where India faced a lot of setbacks. Okay, India faced a lot of setbacks. Now, post 1962, there would be a lot of events which would unfold, which would make India and China more and more skeptical towards coming closer. Okay, you can write post 1962 war, post 1962 war, post 1962 war. India, China continued to be on a path of security dilemma. That is, India is skeptical of China and vice versa. China did not believe India. India did not believe China. Now, what events triggered for this? Okay, you need to be more specific here. Okay, you can write 1963. 1963, transfer of Shaksgam Valley. 1963, transfer of Shaksgam Valley. Okay, if you know the map of Kashmir, okay, what you realize is a part of Kashmir has been occupied by Pakistan. That's what we call it as POK, okay, Pak occupied Kashmir. Whereas a small portion of territory of Pak occupied Kashmir, okay, it is called Shaksgam Valley. Okay, a very important territory from India's perspective. This is just below, just below this, you'll see Siachen Glacier. Okay, Siachen Glacier is located just below the Shaksgam Valley. Now, this is also called Trans-Karakoram Tract. Okay, this particular region is also called Trans-Karakoram Tract. It was a part of Pak occupied Kashmir. But now what Pakistan has realized that India has a new enemy. India has a new enemy, that is enemy's enemy is friend. Now what Pakistan has started doing is it started transferring a portion of its territory to China. This is what is something unusual which happened in India in you can say post 1950s, where Pakistan would transfer a portion of its to China. Now, currently, this Shaksgam Valley is under the control of China. Understood this? Okay, it is originally belonging to India, Pak occupied portion of this, and a small portion of the occupied territory it would transfer to China. That's what 1963 the events unfolded. Okay, now India has two enemies which are coming closer, Pakistan and China. Okay, then next year, 1964, China conducts nuclear testing. China conducts nuclear testing. Okay, now what is something important is just 2 years back, India and China went to a war. Now, after 2 years, China started developing the nuclear weapons. Now, India is very much skeptical that these nuclear weapons might be used against India. Now it is a huge security challenge for India. Okay. Now, India had no other options but to develop its own nuclear weapons. In 1974, India also conducts nuclear testing. In 1974, India also conducts the first nuclear test, which we call as Pokhran 1. Pokhran 1. Okay, now India is not very happy with China. Okay, China is not very happy with India. That's what security dilemma. And in 1975, Sikkim becomes part of India. Till that point of time, Sikkim was a protectorate state. Sikkim was a protectorate state, and in 1975, it becomes part of India. Okay, which China claims that just like Tibet was annexed by China, China claims that Sikkim was annexed by India. Okay, so this was a time where a lot of events would unfold, okay, during this period, which makes the India-China relations more and more turbulent. Okay. Any questions during this phase, security dilemma, or are we clear? Okay. In 1976, what happens is there would be a restoration of.
What about the?
Yeah,
Sorry,
please
sir.
go ahead.
What about the people in the Sikkim, sir? Like, where do they want to be?
See, Sikkim was under a monarchy earlier. Okay, there was a monarchy which was called Chogyal dynasty. Okay, now what would happen is there would be a lot of turbulence within Sikkim, and what would happen is the Sikkim Assembly would pass a resolution that they wanted to be part of India. In fact, they were part of Indian security framework. That's what we call protected state. If you trace the history of Sikkim, we can cover it in 3 phases. From 1947 to 74, it was a protectorate state. Okay, and 1975, it was given an associate statehood. Okay, and 1976, full statehood. Okay, Sikkim becomes one of the state in India, 22nd state in India. Okay, so during this time, the assembly passes the resolution that they wanted to be part of India. Here also they wanted to be full, they wanted like full statehood within India. So it came from Sikkim, not from Indian side. So we expect that the people of Sikkim respects this, you can say, stand. And what we also notice is Sikkim today is one of the most peaceful states in India. Okay, because the integration has been smooth. Okay, and also we notice that Sikkim is one of the most politically stable states. Okay, if you are aware, the current chief minister of Sikkim, the Pawan Kumar Chamling, okay, he completed, he broke the record of being the longest serving chief minister of any Indian state. Okay, earlier it was Jyoti Basu. Today, the Sikkim is most politically stable state and also one of the most peaceful states in India. Right. So if you ask me, yes, the people of Sikkim, in fact, were they gave their nod to this particular resolution. Okay. Any other questions?
Sir,
Mhm.
Regarding that Shaksgam Valley transfer, so if like China was aware of it being a disputed territory with India and Pakistan, why would it come in like and accept the territory on behalf of the just one party?
Okay, I would ask in a different way. Why not? If you are getting free territory, who would not accept it?
No,
Okay,
for
without
example,
doing-
like
yeah.
India generally won't go in if China has a dispute with any other country, right? India would cease to like deal with that country in general. So why
Yeah.
didn't China respect that way?
Because China is China, okay? Because China is not India. See, China is some country which is having a lot of territorial ambitions. Okay, India is not like that. Okay, India is not a country with territorial ambitions. We respect other countries, you can say, claims. Okay, for example, when we are having disputes with Bangladesh, okay, we are having disputes with Maldives. Okay, had China been in India place, it would not have dispute. It would just go and annex it, come back. Is it clear? China, that's where China is an aggressive neighbor. Okay, because the way that China is expanding, okay, because many small countries in its neighborhood, like Vietnam or Philippines or a lot of countries with in the neighborhood with Japan, it is having a lot of territorial disputes, but Chinese behavior is very much aggressive. Okay, but unlike India, we wanted to resolve the dispute in a more, you can say, in a more respectable manner. Okay, but what China does is it would try to push harder, and in an aggressive way, it would try to capture the territory. And China is having a lot of territorial ambitions. It wanted to, you can say, capture a lot of territory by whatever means it takes. That's where a lot of countries in the neighborhood are skeptical about Chinese growth, because if China becomes more and more powerful, it would be a threat for them. But if India becomes powerful, it is not a threat for any country, right? Okay.
Sir, one more thing. So this Trans-Karakoram region which was transferred, right? So, I mean, I read somewhere that it was subject to a condition by Pakistan, like it will depend on the final resolution of Kashmir issue.
Yeah. See, once Pakistan has given the territory, today we know that Pakistan is not Pakistan. Pakistan means China. Okay, because Pakistan, the entire administration of Pakistan, the entire economy of Pakistan is heavily dependent on China. Okay, now what China does is arm twists a country. Okay, from all the perspectives. This is what today we call it as neo-colonialism. Heard of it? Okay. Now, what British East India Company was doing to India? It came, it captured the territories. Okay, it is called colonialism. Okay, now same thing is happening in Pakistan and China. Though we are saying that Pakistan is a separate country, but everyone knows that behind Pakistan there is China. Today it becomes very difficult for Pakistan to come out of the clutches of China, which Pakistan realized lately. Is it clear? Because when you're depending on another country, you are sacrificing your sovereignty. Now Pakistan is no longer a sovereign country. Okay, it has become like a puppet of China. Now, though Pakistan wants to get back that territory, it is virtually impossible. Is it clear? So in real world, when you are depending on other country, you are being taken as an advantage. That's what which happens. Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
So though there are so many clauses on paper, but in practice, getting back a territory from China is virtually impossible. Okay, that's what Pakistan realizes lately. Okay, all right. Now, coming to 1976 again, this was a phase, you can write down, detente. You can write 1970s was a phase of detente. D-E-T-E-N-T-E. D-E-T-E-N-T-E, detente. Detente means easing of tensions. Easing of tensions during the Cold War period. Easing of tensions during the Cold War period. Now, what happened was after World War II, there would be two blocks which would be developed in the world. Okay, one block is led by USA. The other block is led by former Soviet Union. Today we call Russia. Okay, now this is what we call it as the Cold War era. Okay, the world is divided into two blocks, the US bloc and Soviet bloc. Now, what happened was slowly the US and Soviet Union started coming together in 1970s. This particular phase is what we call it as detente. Okay, that means easing of tensions. When US and Soviet Union started coming closer, their allies also started coming together, including China. Now, China also had its own developmental priorities. What happened in India in 1991, if you are aware, this is what we call LPG reforms. Heard of it? Okay, liberalization, privatization, globalization reforms, where Indian economy aligned with the market economy of the world. Okay, now the similar LPG reforms would take place in China in 1970s. Okay, now it became a compulsion for China to come together with India. Okay, and the same thing with India. Now the US and Soviet Union would pressurize India and China to come closer. Okay, we know that India would go towards Soviet Union in 1971. Okay, and in 1976, both India and China had no other option but to come closer because of the pressurization done by US and Soviet Union. This is what we call it as reluctant reconciliation. Okay, reluctant reconciliation. It is something like loveless arranged marriage. Okay, I hope you know what happens in a loveless arranged marriage. Okay, your elders force you to live together. You don't want to be. Okay, the same thing happened between India and China. That the elders, US and Soviet Union, pressurized India and China to come closer, but India, China did not want to come closer. But because of the external pressure, both of them would come closer. This is what we call it as the phase of reluctant reconciliation. Okay. Now, what happens in 1998? India again goes nuclear. India again, you can say, conducts the nuclear testing, second nuclear testing, Pokhran 2, okay, which China condemns. And both India and China are on the path of growth. India admires Chinese, you can say, economic growth. Okay, China admires India's political development, but at the same time, both are cautious of each other. Okay, that means India is cautious of China, China is cautious of India. Okay, I think this is what the trend, if you see. Okay, so I think we try to understand what exactly the phases of relationship which happened between India and China. Okay, any questions till now, or are we clear?
Sir, what was the result of 1978 tests? Like
19
how did it impact?
1974 nuclear testing.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
See, 1974 nuclear testing, India has done the nuclear testing. Okay, this is what we call Pokhran 1. We proved to the world that we can conduct nuclear testing. But in 1998, we developed weapons. Okay, this is only testing part. Okay, this is the you can say a real nuclear tag was given to India in 1998. So China is not very happy that India is conducting nuclear testing. Okay, that's a different story. The reason is obvious, because if India is developing nuclear weapons, it might use against two countries. One is Pakistan, one is China, the two enemies of India. Okay, and China is aware of this fact that they might be used against China. That's where China is a strongly condemning India's nuclear testing, which is not in good interest of China. Is it clear? Did I answer it or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. I'll take it as yes. Okay, all right. Now moving forward. Now, what exactly do we need to prepare between India? Okay, hope we are connected again. There was a network disruption. Okay, now what I have done is, can someone confirm?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So what I have done here is I just try to divide a lot of issues between India and China as areas of conflict, areas of competition, and areas of cooperation. Okay, now within the areas of conflict, okay, we'll try to understand what areas India and China are conflicting with each other. Okay, first one you can write border disputes. Border disputes. Second one, okay, the problems with China we are not only having with respect to borders, but also related to river sharing. River sharing. Then third one, the 3E approach of China. The 3E approach of China. Encirclement, envelopment, and entanglement. Okay, we'll discuss in detail what exactly does this mean. Encirclement, envelopment, and entanglement. The 3E approach. One country, two systems. One country, two systems. One China policy. One China policy. centralization of leadership. Centralization of leadership. Okay, the Xi Jinping's the leadership style. Okay, so these are all the areas where India and China are conflicting with each other. Okay, then one more thing what we need to understand here is India and China are not only conflicting. Okay, there are a lot of areas where we compete with each other. Okay, so what I have seen is when students prepare for India, Pakistan, India, China, they only focus on areas of conflict. Okay, definitely there is an area of conflict, but at the same time there are a lot of other areas where we try to cooperate with each other. There are a lot of areas where we are competing with each other. Okay, when we are competing, it means a healthy competition. Okay, it is not like one win and one lose. Okay, it is a win-win situation. Areas of cooperation where we are working closely with China. Now these are the areas which may be often asked in your exam, because these are least studied by the students. Okay, because when I say India, China, they only prepare for border disputes, because that's what like the media shows us. Okay, but what the media does not show is there are a lot of areas where India and China are competing with each other. There are in fact even more areas where we are cooperating with each other. These become super important for our examination perspective. Okay, we'll also focus on areas of cooperation, areas of competition. Okay, when we are preparing for these countries, but for time being, make a note of all the issues which are there between India and China. Okay, you can take a screenshot or you can write it down. Okay, the way you're comfortable with. So we'll go into one after the other. Okay, the issues which are there between India, China. Okay, first one, write down heading border disputes.
Hello, sir. Hello.
I hope we are connected again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So we are talking about the border disputes which are there between India and China. So we can divide the border disputes into three categories. Okay, the first one you can write down. The first one is the western sector. The first one is the western sector. Western sector, where there are territories like Aksai Chin, where there are territories like Aksai Chin, Aksai Chin. Okay, you can see here the western sector where there is Aksai Chin region, which has been occupied by China in 1962 war. The Shaksgam Valley, as I told, like this was a territory. Okay, if it is too small, I'll just zoom this. Okay, we are talking about this particular region, Shaksgam Valley or Trans-Karakoram Tract, which was transferred to China. Okay, we are having Aksai Chin here. Okay, and within Aksai Chin there are like lot of areas. Okay, the red colored line what you see is what we call McMahon line. McMahon line. Okay, again it is a border which India claims is between India and China, which is the official border between India and China from Indian side. But what China does not recognize is McMahon line. China says that this is a colonial border and line of actual control, LAC, okay, is a you can say ceasefire line which has been drawn between India and China. Now, often we see that the Chinese troops are entering Indian side or Indian troops are entering or crossing the LAC. Okay, now this is what like which happened during the Galwan Valley as well. Okay, the recent incident of Galwan, if you are aware. Okay, like 2 years back. Okay, now in addition to the Aksai Chin region and Shaksgam Valley, we also have challenges of Depsang Plain, DEP, SANG, Depsang Plain, DEP, SANG. Okay, just be aware about all these places, what you see in news like Rakhi Nala or Daulat Beg Oldie, okay, or you can say the Karakoram Pass. Okay, often these places might be asked in your prelims. Okay, arrange these places from north to south order or east to west order. Okay, because these are all the places which are there in news. Okay, then the second one is the middle sector. The second region is the middle sector. You can write middle sector. It is expected that most of the border is resolved. It is expected that most of the border is resolved in middle sector. Most of the border is resolved in the middle sector until the Doklam standoff. Until the Doklam, DOKLAM, Doklam. Can anyone tell me where is Doklam situated? Where is it?
At the tri-junction of Nepal, China, and Sikkim.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other?
Bhutan.
Bhutan. It's located in Bhutan. Doklam is officially there in Bhutan, but Bhutan and India has a security treaty. So the border security of Bhutan is the prerogative of India. So that is where Indian troops would protect the Bhutanese territory. Okay, Doklam is situated in Bhutan, somewhere here. Now we expected that the middle sector is more or less clear, but often we can see that the Chinese incursions are happening in the middle sector as well. Now, if you look at the map of China, what you understand here, because there is a Bhutan here. Okay, there is Bhutan here, but just above that there is Tibet, which is a turbulent province. What we also noticed is China is building huge infrastructural projects on Tibet side. Okay, like railway lines, like roads, okay, highway projects. Now, what we can see here is often Chinese troops come into contact with the Bhutanese side, okay, where Indian troops are protected. This is one more area of conflict which is happening between India and China. Okay, then on the eastern sector, the Arunachal Pradesh. China claims it as South Tibet. China claims it as South Tibet. Often China says it is a South Tibet. Okay, but Chinese claim over Arunachal Pradesh are highly, you can say, there is no clarity from the Chinese side itself. Okay, often China says the whole Arunachal Pradesh belongs to us. Often China says up till Tawang. Okay, if you are aware about the Tawang monastery. Okay, Tawang is a place in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, often China claims that up till Tawang it belongs to China. Okay, so on the Arunachal Pradesh side, it is not very clear from China. Often the whole Arunachal Pradesh is claimed. Often a portion of Arunachal would be claimed by China. So in short, if you want to summarize the border disputes between India and China, there are three, you can say, if you want, you can maybe draw something like this in your exam as well. Okay, which would be helpful. Okay, even for the examiner to understand. Okay, maybe you can just draw some portion like this and say that this is Aksai Chin region. Okay, this is Aksai Chin region. Okay, and this is line of actual control, and this is McMahon line. Okay, which is officially claimed by China. This particular portion is officially claimed by China, and this is a ceasefire line after the 1962 war. And here we are having the middle sector. This is western sector. Here we are calling it as middle sector, and here on the eastern sector. So the border disputes between India and China can be summed up into three sectors: western, middle, and eastern. In western sector, these are all the important territories which are disputed. In the middle sector, mostly it is resolved until the Doklam issue came up in 2013-2014, where we came to know that this middle sector is also not completely peaceful. Then on the eastern sector, China has always the claims over Arunachal Pradesh, sometimes fully, sometimes partially. Okay, I hope you got an overview of the border disputes. Now you can write a few other points related to India-China border dispute. India-China border dispute. You can write few points. China has resolved border disputes with most of its neighbors. Okay, China is in the process of resolving the border disputes. Now, what we learned in the last class is India is having a lot of border disputes with its neighbors. Okay, either with Pakistan or with Bangladesh or with Sri Lanka. Okay, either land borders or maritime borders, we are having the issues. And these are often coming up when we are talking about good relations. Okay, so India should also go ahead with resolving the border disputes sooner than later. Okay, you can write few other points. The China's territorial ambitions. The China's territorial ambitions are often aggressive. With theories such as palm and five fingers. Palm and five fingers. Palm and five fingers. Palm and five fingers. Okay, the palm is Tibet. You can just draw this diagram. Palm is Tibet. And the five fingers are Ladakh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. Okay, Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, and Ladakh. Now, what China often claims, okay, though not official, that we have captured the palm. Okay, it looks like a palm, the hand, okay, with five fingers. It has already captured Tibet. Now, China is often claiming Ladakh, often claiming Arunachal Pradesh, and Bhutan, Nepal, and Sikkim, though they are not officially claimed by China. Okay, but sometimes in its maps, it is shown as its own territories. Okay, which is a concern for a country like India. Okay, is it clear? Because China has a territorial ambition of maybe probably capturing, we do not know, these territories as well, which are the theories. So there is no official statistic about this, but these are all media terms. Okay, that China claims these territories, which is a concern for, definitely a concern for India. Okay, next point you can write. There are also reports that India and China are considering Aksai Chin versus Arunachal swap policy. Aksai Chin versus Arunachal swap policy. Arunachal swap policy. Okay, which are often claimed as surprise package by China. Surprise package by China, or out of box settlement by India. Out of box settlement by India. Out of box settlement by India. So we do not know. Okay, probably these might be you can say some kind of you can say far-fetched imagination of the media, okay, or it could be some kind of official statistic which is going to be revealed at a later date. But as of now, it is just a claim, okay, or there are like some kind of reports which say that we are considering these two. That means India is going to give up its claim on Aksai Chin and China is going to give up its claim on Arunachal. Maybe you might get a probable question that should India go ahead with some kind of policy like this? Okay, but just be cautious that these are something which are being considered. Okay, again, when you're writing your answer about these kind of very sensitive points, you have to be choosing your words very rightly. Okay, you should not get emotional, first of all. Okay, because this is something which is being considered by both the governments. So you have to respect that decision. And most importantly, when you're writing your answers, okay, be cautious of choosing the right word. Okay. Any questions related to border disputes? Okay, one simple thing is good borders make good neighbors. One thing we do not have is we do not have good borders. So always when you're writing your answer, please ensure that you have to write about this particular point, that we need to resolve the border disputes as quickly as possible. Because if you are keeping your border disputes open, this is never good for both the parties. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead if you are having a question.
Sir, I mean, not exactly a question, but I guess I read or heard that this was offered before the 1962 war from the Chinese side, that we can actually go in for a trade, like India gives up its claim on Aksai Chin, and in return, China won't interfere in Arunachal.
Yeah, probably I'm not sure. Maybe if you find any article or any source, you can share it with me. I'm not sure about pre-1962 because pre-1962 we never expected that Aksai Chin would be captured by China, and that too by a war. Okay, so but later, maybe post 1962 war only, the issues of this border became more and more controversial. So to put it this way, India and China does not have any formal agreement for border resolution. Okay, only one ad hoc agreement you can write down: Border Defense Cooperation Agreement of 2013. Okay, we are having a border defense cooperation agreement. That means only the defense forces would cooperate with each other. Okay, in case of any kind of challenges, and this is going to be a graded mechanism. Okay, where it would go to the highest level of defense personnel, so that the issues do not get escalated. Okay, so we do have one agreement in place, but many scholars say that this is almost ineffective because despite having BDCA, we have gone ahead with Doklam. Despite having BDCA, we have gone ahead with the Galwan issue. So many scholars say that the border disputes is the agreement what we are having with China is almost like non-existent. Okay, or there need to be a complete revision of the border cooperation agreement with China. Okay, I think we got an overview of what are all the border disputes between India and China. Any questions so far? Okay, if not, we'll wind up the class. In tomorrow's class, we'll discuss about water dispute. Okay, we'll discuss about the BRA, maybe come prepared on BRA, Belt and Road Initiative of China. Okay, and hope you are doing that assignment as well, what I have given yesterday, because till now I haven't received any assignment. So whatever the topics I'm talking about in the class, maybe a lot of new topics might be for you, like Vietnam War, like Korean War, like Cold War, like non-alignment. I hope you're going to do some write-up on this. Okay, maybe you can submit as an assignment as well, a short note, maybe not more than 100 words, okay, on these topics. Okay, any questions before we wrap up? Okay, all right, thank you then. Have a
When
nice
should
day.
we submit it, sir?
Bye.